Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. I have a time-lapse tutorial for you. I have been starting to fill the pages of this watercolor sketchbook, and today I did a painting of a fox. I'm going to be doing front and back pages, so there will be a lot of paintings when this is all said and done. But I love animals, so I figured I'd stick with either a wildlife theme or just animals in general for this watercolor notebook. So I've been excited to kind of start filling those pages. So that's what I have today. It's just going to be sped up, condensed down, and then I will share a little bit about my process and what I did during the painting. Before I get into the actual tutorial, I did want to mention my website, CoreyFrankCreates.com. It's the best way to get in touch with me and learn a little bit more about what I do. You can sign up for my weekly email newsletter there, and in return you'll get my free no-brainer watercolor supplies buying guide. It's just a one-page PDF with links to a variety of supplies that I would recommend based on budget. And yeah, that can be really helpful when you're first starting out and just aren't sure where to start with supplies, because it can get overwhelming. So I have that, as well as my online art shop, and I also have my online courses. So when you're ready to dive deeper with watercolors and get comprehensive info, you can go check those out. Again, that is all on CoreyFrankCreates.com. All right, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this painting. So this is a longer painting, so I do have a sketch down that is a pencil sketch, and then I'm starting off with fairly smooth application, wet on wet technique. So I'm using my size 8 round brush first to lay down thin layers of water, and then going over with the pigment. So I started out with Payne's Gray and a little bit of sepia brown for that really dark shadow on the ear. And then I'm using a combination of cadmium orange and some cadmium red light, and I think also some brown madder, which is kind of like that brick red. So I started off kind of just blocking in that color to give me a sort of frame of reference for those eyes. Sometimes it helps to have just a little bit of color down rather than the pure white of the paper. That way you can kind of tell the value you need a little better and how dark you need to get. So I've been working on the eyes for a little bit here. I'm using a very fine detailed brush that is a size 0 round brush. It's one of the smallest sizes you can get from that brand. So it comes to a very fine point, allows you to paint in really tiny areas, which is really helpful because this is not a very large notebook. It's like around 6 by 8 inches or so. So I really want to make sure that when I'm getting in those small areas, I can get nice and detailed with it. And by the way, the image that I'm using as reference for this painting is linked in the description. It's from unsplash.com. They have royalty-free or copyright-free images on there, but I always like to give the photographer credit, and this was a really beautiful image. So again, going back and forth between that wet on wet technique for the face and the shading, and then for those more detailed areas like the eyes, and then when I get into the nose, like the tip of the nose, I'm using wet on dry. So I'm applying wet paint to a dry surface because I don't want that paint to spread anywhere. I want it to stay right where I laid it down. And so I used 3 different size brushes with this painting, and they were all round brushes. So I used the size 8 round. This one right now is a size 4. It's a fairly small brush, but just a little bigger because using the size 0 brush would not be practical for all the detailed parts. I have like a mid-level of detail and then the really fine details. So that's why I have the 3 different brushes. And of course that size 8 brush is ideal for laying in the larger areas and blocking in those general colors. So Payne's Gray is kind of my favorite substitute to use instead of black. So I use that a lot in my paintings, and that's what I'm using here. You can see kind of where the white fur is, where there's shadowing on the white fur. I used Payne's Gray instead of black, and I also used the sepia brown in conjunction with that Payne's Gray to give it a little more of a warmer tone. So very often when you're looking at an image, you'll see kind of maybe some unexpected colors. Like on that nose, I used a little bit of ultramarine blue and a tiny bit of dioxazine purple because there was almost that kind of shiny, almost like when oil is wet where you see like the sort of like very muted rainbow colors. It was almost like that. So you can have fun and experiment with color. I really enjoy doing that. I didn't do it as much with this painting. For the most part, I use colors that you would more expect to see on a fox, but I do get really vibrant and bold with the background colors near the end, so you get to see that lovely contrast. The only other color I don't think I've mentioned is that there are a couple spots where I used some cadmium yellow, like on that ear, well, it's on the right side, but it would be the fox's left ear. There's some yellow there. And yeah, so I decided to not paint the whole fox, plus the image didn't have the full body of the fox. It was kind of like from the, stomach up. So I sort of, stylistically kind of had it fade and was happy with that idea, but I wound up adding something really fun at the end. And so when we get to that point, I'll talk about it a bit, but I'm excited to get to that point. So again, you can see a little bit that ultramarine blue on the sort of neck area where the white fur is. That was kind of the only unexpected color I sort of used because it seemed like it had a little bit of a blue tone to it in the image, and I just pushed that a little further beyond what you might see in reality. Again, switching back and forth between that mid-size detail brush, larger round brush, and then this super fine detail brush was perfect for painting those whiskers. So I used Payne's Gray as well as the sepia brown, which is a really, really dark brown, and was able to paint those in really finely so they're just thin, fine whisker hairs. Trying to make sure I've bumped up the value to as high of a point as it needs to be, so there's really a contrast between light and dark. And I felt like the fox was looking really good, so I went ahead and I'm using the wet on wet technique. Oh, sorry, I'm dog sitting right now, and one of the dogs is like scratching at the door, so you may hear that in the recording. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I'm using Viridian Green and Ultramarine Blue here, and you can see I block in water and then add the pigment over the top, and it just makes it flow and blend automatically right on the paper, so I didn't have to pre-mix the color on my palette. So I just wanted to be very loose and free and just let those colors bleed into each other. And I just loved getting it as dark as I could with those two tones because it really helped pop the fox forward, made it stand out. Something that's really important for making something more realistic with a painting is really having that nice contrast and full spectrum of value from light to dark. So I extended the sort of bottom chest area a little further down and then added some more cadmium orange just to bump up that vibrancy. It was like a little muted. And then I thought, okay, I had a vision in my head of including butterflies somehow in this painting. But when I first started, I wasn't sure exactly how I would achieve that. So when I got to this point, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I'll just do these light kind of silhouettes and just add a sort of dreamlike quality. I love adding elements of fantasy, somewhat surrealism into my work, so this was just a really fun way to do that. And I just kind of painted these from my head. So okay, hold on, I'm gonna open the door. All right, baby. There you go. Come on, let's go. Okay, I'm so sorry for that interruption. So I didn't look at any reference images really for these butterflies, so they're not as realistic as they could be, but I didn't think they needed to be since, again, it's kind of more fantastical and dreamlike, and they're still recognizable as butterfly silhouettes, so it worked out. And then, of course, my signature splatter with several different colors. I just think it adds a fun whimsy to the piece. So I add a signature with that fine detail brush, and there you have the end result. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Until my next one, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. God bless, and I will see you soon.